Chapter 8. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling the ache in muscles that had been soft not so long ago. My body had changed. I could do things now that would have left me winded before. But that didn't change what I'd done. What I'd failed to do. The 220 children haunted me most. I'd found the discrepancy. I'd submitted a query. And then I'd let it be withdrawn without fighting, because fighting would have been dangerous, would have drawn attention, would have risked everything I'd built. Those children had deserved better than my caution. Doug's daughter had deserved better. The next morning I came down to find Anna already at her usual station. She glanced up when I entered. "You look terrible. Didn't sleep much. Is this about Doug?" I sat down heavily. The chair creaked under me, less loudly than it would have 2 months ago. It's about the children I didn't save. The ones I approved relocations for without questioning where they were going. Anna's expression didn't change. "You can't undo that." "I know. So what are you going to do about it?" I looked at her properly then. She wasn't offering comfort. She was asking a question that demanded an answer. I need to find them. The 220 from District 7 East. At least those. I need to know where they went. Why? Because I put them there. "You can't get them back," Anna said quietly. "Even if you find them, even if you confirm where they are, we don't have the capacity to extract that many people. We don't have the resources, the transport, the safe houses." "I know it." My voice came out more abruptly than I intended. "I know we can't save them. But I can at least know. I can at least document what happened to them. Where they went. What the system did after I signed the authorization." She studied me for a long moment. Then she turned back to her screen. "It'll take time. I have time. It'll be dangerous. Digging into closed files, tracking movements that were supposed to disappear." "I know." Her fingers moved across the keyboard. District 7 East. June relocations. DPM classification, destination RT7. The screen filled with data. I'll need a few days to trace the onward movements. RT7 was processing, not permanent holding. They went somewhere afterwards. "Thank you." She glanced at me again. "This won't give you peace." "I know that too. But you're doing it anyway." "Yes." She nodded once, then returned to her work. I sat beside her, watching the data scroll past, and thought about Doug. About the question he'd asked that I couldn't answer. Maybe I still couldn't answer it. Maybe I never would. But maybe I could try. Anna's fingers raced across the keyboard. The screens flickered through data streams faster than I could follow. She stopped abruptly, leaned closer, then pulled back. "Found something," she said. Her voice carried no inflection, but she'd straightened in her chair. RT7 processed 206 units in that window. 14 didn't make it through intake screening. 14. Dead, presumably. Or sent somewhere else. Never to be considered again, except by their family. If they'd had one. And the rest? She pulled up another screen. Transport manifests, coded destinations, timestamps. Split into 3 groups. First batch went to a textile facility in the northern industrial zone. Second to agricultural processing, southern sector. Third. She paused. Third went to private contractors. "What kind of contractors?" "Doesn't say." Her tone remained neutral, but her hands had stopped moving. "Just lists them as approved placement services." I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of the classifications beside each group. The textile facility made a kind of horrible sense, child labor, dangerous conditions, but at least comprehensible within the system's logic of extracting value from people it had decided were expendable. The agricultural processing seemed similar. It would be cheap labor for food production, keeping costs down being the most important concern for the corporate world. But private contractors. Placement services. What does that mean? I asked. Placement services. Anna turned to look at me fully. Her expression was carefully blank. You really don't know? Know what? She studied my face for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across her features. Not quite surprise. More like dawning comprehension mixed with something else, pity, maybe, or horror at my ignorance. The ones the state decides society doesn't need, she said slowly. The ones who won't grow up to take their place in the economy or produce anything useful, they get sold. Domestic servants for wealthy families who can afford private help. The sex trade, mostly international but some domestic. Organ harvest if there's medical demand. She paused, watching my face. You worked in population administration for how long? 30 years? My throat had closed. I couldn't speak. Tom. Her voice came from very far away. Tom, you did know this. You must have known this. Everyone knows this. I shook my head. The movement felt disconnected from my body, mechanical. I signed authorizations for relocations. Processing facilities. Resource allocation. I never? The words wouldn't come properly. I never asked what happened after processing. Jesus Christ. She pushed back from the screen, standing abruptly. You actually didn't know. You genuinely had no idea what you were approving. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk, feeling it bite into my palms. 206 children. Textile facilities. Agricultural processing. Private contractors. Placement services. Domestic servants. The sex trade. Organ harvest. With my signature on the authorization, my approval of the transport manifest, my verification that everything was procedurally correct. My stamp endorsed that the numbers balanced, that the system functioned as designed. Lindsay. 14 years old. Doug's daughter. Had she gone to a textile facility? To agricultural processing? Or had she been placed with a private contractor, sold to someone who wanted? Who wanted what? I stood too quickly. The chair scraped backwards. Anna said something, but I couldn't hear it through the roaring in my ears. I stumbled towards the door, got it open, made it 3 steps into the yard before my legs gave out and I fell to my knees on the frozen ground. My body convulsed as I heaved, but nothing came up. I retched until I could only gasp for breath, my fingers clawing at the dirt. Behind me, the door opened. Footsteps approached. Anna's voice reached me, quiet and concerned. I thought you were like the others. I thought you knew what you were doing and had just decided it was worth it to keep the system running. That's what we all thought about the administrators. That you knew and didn't care. I couldn't look at her. Couldn't lift my head. The ground beneath my hands was real. Solid. Everything else had become unmoored. 30 years. 30 years of careful procedural reviews, of ensuring classifications matched facility capacities, of approving transport authorizations without questioning destinations. 30 years of being a responsible administrator who kept things orderly and efficient. 30 years of signing death warrants and worse. So much worse. And I hadn't known. Hadn't asked. Hadn't looked beyond the codes and numbers to see what they actually meant. The 220 children from District 7 East. I'd found the discrepancy. I'd noticed something was wrong. And I'd let my query be withdrawn because investigating further would have been dangerous. Those children deserved better than my caution. They deserved better than my ignorance. I stayed on my knees, breathing hard. Anna waited. She didn't offer comfort or platitudes. Just stood there, several feet back, giving me space to process what I'd learned. Eventually I pushed myself upright, though my legs threatened to buckle again. I turned to face her. Lindsay, I managed. Doug's daughter. Which one did she go to? Anna's expression didn't change. I'd have to check the specific records. Check them. She studied me for a moment, then nodded once and went back inside. I followed on unsteady legs, sinking into my chair while she pulled up another screen. The silence stretched while she searched. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pressed them flat against the desk, watching the data scroll past without comprehending any of it. Brennan, Lindsay, Anna said finally. Age 14. District 8 West relocation, July processing window. She paused. Agricultural sector. Southern region facility ages 14. Agricultural. Not the sex trade. Not organ harvest. But still, 14 years old, sent to work in conditions I'd never examined, never questioned. Child labor in food processing plants where safety regulations had been suspended years ago in the name of efficiency. The others from District 7 East, I said. My voice came out hoarse. How many went to private contractors? Anna's fingers moved across the keyboard. 63. 63 children sold like commodities. 63 names I'd never know, faces I'd never see, distributed to buyers who'd submitted requisition forms I'd probably approved without reading. Show me the authorization, I said. Tom. Show me. She hesitated, then pulled up the document. It filled the screen, formatted exactly like thousands of others I'd reviewed over the years. Standard template. District code. Classification. Destination codes that meant nothing to anyone who didn't know the system. And there, at the bottom, the approval signature. Ronald Harker, Regional Population Administration Officer. My signature. My authority. My responsibility. I'd signed it without reading it properly. Without questioning what DPM actually meant, where RTE7 actually was, what happened after the processing window closed. I'd signed it because it was Tuesday and I had 17 more authorizations to review before lunch, and the system needed to keep functioning smoothly. I want names, I said quietly. All 63. Where they went, who took them, what the placement codes actually mean. Anna turned to look at me properly. Why? You said yourself we can't get them back. I know. My throat felt raw. But someone should know their names. Someone should document what happened to them. Someone should. I stopped, unable to finish. Someone should care, I wanted to say. Someone should remember them as people, not processing units. Anna watched me for a long moment. Then she turned back to the screen. It'll take time to compile everything. The records are fragmented deliberately to make tracking difficult. How long? A week. Maybe 2. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. She saved something, closed several windows, and stood. Come on. You need air. I followed her outside into the cold morning. The sun had risen higher, casting long shadows across the yard. Somewhere in the distance, birds called to each other. Normal sounds. An ordinary day. Except nothing was ordinary anymore. Nothing would ever be ordinary again. You're going to have to function, Anna said after a while. The work we're doing here, it matters. More people will be taken if we stop now. I know. Knowing what you did doesn't undo it. But it can inform what you do next. I looked at her then, really looked at her for the first time since entering the outbuilding that morning. She was younger than I'd initially thought, mid-20s, perhaps. Young enough that the system had been established before she was old enough to remember anything different. How long have you been doing this? I asked. 5 years. Since my brother was classified and relocated. She said it matter-of-factly, without emotion. He was 12. Private contractor placement. My stomach lurched again. I'm sorry. She shrugged. You didn't personally sign his authorization. But you signed ones just like it. She met my eyes. That's why I didn't trust you at first. Why none of us did. We couldn't understand how you could work in that system for 30 years and claim ignorance. And now? Now I believe you. She turned back toward the outbuilding. Which is almost worse, isn't it? That you genuinely didn't know. That the system was designed so efficiently that good people like you could participate in atrocities without ever questioning what you were actually doing. The documentation became my penance. Every morning I sat beside Anna and traced the paths of children through the system I'd helped maintain. We started with the 206 from District 7 East who'd made it through RT7's intake screening. Then we expanded backwards, pulling records from the months before, then the year before that. The numbers grew rapidly. By the end of the first week, we'd documented over 800 children. By the end of the second, nearly 2,000. Each one had a name. Each one had an age. Each one had a destination code that translated into something specific and terrible. I wrote them all down. Anna questioned this at first. "We have the digital records," she said, watching me fill another notebook with cramped handwriting. "You don't need to transcribe everything manually." "Digital records can be deleted," I replied. "Or corrupted. Or seized." She didn't argue after that. She simply kept pulling data while I kept writing. I didn't tell her that I needed to write every word myself, in my own hand, in my notebook, so I could hold on to their names, return to them, acknowledge the significance of them, and bear witness to these children. The work had a rhythm to it. Anna would identify a processing batch, pull the transport manifests, cross-reference the destination codes. I would record the names, ages, origin districts, and final placements. Sometimes there were notes in the files, medical conditions, behavioral classifications, special handling requirements. I wrote those down too. Private contractor placements were the hardest to trace. The system deliberately fragmented those records, distributing information across multiple databases to make tracking difficult. Anna had to piece them together like a puzzle, matching timestamps and transport vehicle IDs to reconstruct where children had actually gone. When we found one, I added it to a separate list. Domestic placement. International export. Medical requisition, which was how the system referred to organ harvest, as though it were no different from ordering staples or printing paper. I documented everything with the same careful precision I'd once used for administrative reviews. Except now I understood what the classifications actually meant. Brennan, Lindsay. Age 14. Origin District 8 West. Destination AG 14, Agricultural Processing, Southern Region. Arrival date July 17th. Status, active placement. Active placement. She was still there. Still alive, presumably, still working in whatever conditions agricultural facility AG 14 maintained. Doug's daughter. 14 years old. I'd moved on to transcribing another batch when I heard the knock on the outbuilding door. Anna glanced up from her screen, frowning. We didn't get interruptions during work hours. Everyone in the house knew better than to disturb us. The knock came again, more insistent. Anna rose and crossed to the door, opening it a crack. I heard voices, hers and someone else's, too low to make out the words. Then she stepped back and pulled the door wider. Doug stood in the opening. My hand stilled on the notebook. He looked different than I remembered, thinner, with shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. His gaze found me immediately. "I need to talk to you," he said. Anna didn't move from the doorway. "Doug. Please." His voice cracked slightly. "I know where she is." The silence stretched. Anna looked at me, and I saw the question in her expression. This was my decision. I nodded once, and she stepped aside. Doug entered, and she closed the door behind him. He stood there for a moment, awkward and uncertain, before speaking again. "I know I shouldn't have come back," he said. "I know I crossed a line last time." He looked directly at me. "You know the system. You understand how it works. And you found her. You found where they sent Lindsay." I wondered how he knew that. Anna must have seen the question on my face because she said quietly, "I told him. 2 days ago." He deserved to know. Doug took a step forward. AG's 14. Agricultural Processing Facility in the Southern Region. That's where she is. I've been trying to find out more, but I can't get any information. No one will tell me what conditions are like there, or if she's. He stopped, swallowing hard. If she's all right. Slowly, I put down my pen. The notebook lay open in front of me, filled with names and destinations. Lindsay's entry was 3 pages back. "Sit down," I said. He pulled over a stool and sat, perched on the edge of it as though ready to flee at any moment. Anna remained by the door, arms crossed, watching us. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to get her out." His voice was steadier now, more certain. "I want to bring her home." "Home doesn't exist anymore," Anna said. "Her registration was terminated when she was relocated. Officially, she doesn't have a home to return to." "Then I'll take her somewhere else. Somewhere safe. I don't care where, as long as she's—" He stopped again. "As long as she's not there anymore." I looked at Anna. She shook her head slightly. The message was clear: we don't have the capacity for this. Individual extractions from secure facilities weren't what the resistance did. We intercepted people before they reached those facilities, rerouted them, made them disappear from the system before they could be processed. Once someone was inside a facility, they were beyond our reach. "I know what you're going to say," Doug continued, reading our silence correctly. "I know it's too dangerous, too difficult, that you can't risk the network for one person." His hands clenched into fists. "But she's my daughter. She's 14 years old. And I sent her away." "You didn't send her," I said quietly. "The system took her. I didn't fight hard enough to keep her. I thought—" He laughed bitterly. "I thought if I complied with everything, if I followed all the rules, they'd leave us alone. That's what people like you told us. Keep your head down, stay compliant, everything will be fine." The accusation hung in the air. He was right, of course. That was exactly what administrators like me had told people. It had been the official guidance: cooperation ensures safety. Resistance invites scrutiny. And it had all been a lie designed to make processing easier. "I can't get her out," I said. The words felt heavy. "I don't have that capability. The resistance doesn't have that capability. Agricultural facilities are secure installations with full monitoring. Any attempt to extract someone would fail and likely get people killed." Doug's face crumpled. For a moment I thought he might cry, or shout, or lunge at me again like he had in the kitchen. Instead he just sat there, shoulders sagging. "Then what am I supposed to do?" he asked. "Just accept that she's gone? Move on with my life like she never existed?" I looked down at the notebook. Page after page of names. Children who'd been classified, relocated, and distributed to facilities just like AG-14. Children whose parents had probably asked the same question Doug was asking now. What am I supposed to do? The honest answer was nothing. There was nothing to do except grieve and hope the system collapsed before it could take anyone else. But I couldn't say that to him. "Tell me about her," I said instead. "Tell me what she's like." Doug looked at me, confused. "What?" "Your daughter. Tell me about her." He hesitated, clearly not understanding where this was going. Neither did I, really. But something in me needed to hear it, needed Lindsay to be more than just an entry in a database, more than active placement at AG-14. "She's—" Doug started, then stopped. "She was always small for her age. Stubborn, though. Wouldn't back down from anything once she'd made up her mind about it." A faint smile crossed his face. "She wanted to be a teacher. Used to line up her stuffed animals and give them lessons about whatever she'd learned that week." I wrote that down. Next to Lindsay's entry in the notebook, I added, "small for her age. Stubborn. Wanted to be a teacher." Doug watched me write. "What are you doing?" "Remembering her," I said. "The system reduces people to processing units and classification codes. Someone should remember who they actually were." His voice sharpened. "She's not dead." "No," I agreed. "She's not." I looked up at him. "But the system treats relocated children as though they've ceased to exist as individuals. I'm trying to document who they really are. Who they were before the system took them. Doug stared at the notebook, at the pages filled with names and the small personal details I'd managed to glean from files. Why? Because someone should. It was inadequate, I knew. Documentation wouldn't save anyone. It wouldn't bring Lindsay home or undo what had been done to the 2,000 children whose names filled these pages. It's my way of bearing witness, I added. But he still looked as if he wanted more. It means not letting them disappear, I said. The system reduces them to case numbers and transfer dates. Writing their names down with any other details I can get is my way of saying I saw them. I remember them. They mattered. Doug stood abruptly. That's not enough. I know. She needs more than someone writing down that she wanted to be a teacher. I know that too. He turned towards the door, and I thought he was leaving. Instead he stopped, shoulders rigid. If you can't get her out, can you at least tell me what's happening to her there? What conditions are like? I glanced at Anna. She gave a small nod. Agricultural processing facilities handle food preparation for the lower classification districts, I said. The work is physically demanding, sorting, cleaning, packaging. Shifts run 12 to 14 hours. Safety protocols are minimal. Injuries are common. And children work there. Children classified as DPM are considered suitable for light labor assignments. The bureaucratic language came automatically, then I heard what I'd said and stopped. Yes. Children work there. Doug's hands were trembling. How old? The youngest I've documented in agricultural placement was 9. He made a sound that wasn't quite a sob, quickly suppressed. Jesus Christ. Anna spoke from her position by the door. The facilities provide basic food and shelter. Medical treatment for serious injuries only. It's not. She paused, choosing her words carefully. It's not the worst placement. She's not in the sex trade. She's not in organ harvest. Age 14 is harsh, but it's survivable. Survivable. Doug repeated the word like he was testing its weight. My daughter is in a place where surviving is the best we can hope for. None of us had an answer to that. He turned back to me. Can you get a message to her? Let her know I'm trying to find a way to bring her home. No. Anna's voice was firm. Communication with active placements is monitored. Any message would be flagged immediately and traced back to its source. You'd be putting her in more danger, not less. So she thinks I abandoned her. She thinks what the system told her to think, Anna said. That her relocation was necessary for her own welfare and society stability. That her family agreed to the placement. Doug's face went white. They told her I agreed. Standard procedure for minor relocations. Reduces resistance if subjects believe their families consented. I watched him process that, saw the moment it broke something inside him. His daughter believed he'd given her away willingly. Believed he'd signed the forms and sent her to age 14 without protest. And there was no way to tell her otherwise. I'm going to be sick, he said quietly. Anna opened the door and he stumbled outside. We heard him retching in the yard.